Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Tosetti.
And I'm Kevin Gibbons.
And we are with The Savvy Life. We are starting today just a few minutes early to allow people to log on to join us for our show that will officially start at the top of the hour. But in the meantime, we're going to give you what we call our pre-show.
Yep.
And today we are talking about shipping.
Yep. My wife, as we've talked about in the past, loves to collect antiques, and she was in Southern California this past weekend and found a lot of really great deals. And so I had the experience of hearing a knock on the door and opening the door and literally not being able to open the door because it was wedged shut with boxes. From
The cask of Amontillado, you were walled in by antiques.
Pretty much. And so one of the things that I thought would be interesting to talk about is, my wife was able to get some very good deals. She's a very smart shopper with those type of things. But if you don't factor in all the extra costs, like the shipping costs, what seems like a good deal may not be. And in this case, she was, because again, she was aware of it and she was savvy. But again, shipping antiques, each box costs between $30 and $50 to ship. And that's a sizable amount of money. And so it adds up. She probably spent maybe close to $300 in shipping on top of the price for the antiques. And so what I just wanted to talk about was the fact that when you're shopping, you have to make sure that you're including all the other tertiary add-on costs that can be hidden in a lot of these deals. You've been doing a lot of traveling. You're getting ready to do some more. Airlines are notorious. Here's a ticket to go from San Francisco to Colorado Springs for $200, and you say, "Great, buy," and then you get a bill for $280. Well, wait, what happened? Or more. And it's because there are all these other little add-ons that they add in. So you have to be aware of all these things when you're calculating what the final price is.
Right. I would add to that, my husband last night went to a Misfits concert in Oakland, California. And it's funny because I went on Facebook today and I realized that all of my friends were at the concert. The interesting thing about that particular experience, it's been quite a while since he's gone to a concert. He works nights and busy, etc.
Yeah, it's probably been over 10 years since he's gone to a show.
Probably, yeah. It was probably an Ozfest that we all went to. But that being said, he went to buy his ticket and he was shocked by the fees added on, and without him having to actually drive to Oakland, which is 45 minutes to an hour away from here each way, he had no choice but to do that. And then on top of that, when he arrived at the concert, I will never forget, he said, "Oh, do you have any cash? You'll probably have to pay for parking." I said, "Here's $20. That way, I said, "It's going to be at least $20." He's like, "I don't think it's going to be that much." It was $40. $40 to park your car. Yeah. And so it's that same idea of just, it's not about not doing those things. He's been on a high all day from that concert, but it's about eyes wide open walking into it. So
I ran into that. I go to not a huge number of shows, but I probably go to 4 or 5 shows a year. And I learned very quickly. In fact, I didn't even think of it when you mentioned that he was going to the show. There are a number of services in major cities, in San Francisco, Bay Area especially has one, where if you join this website and it tells you where parking is, and you can buy discount parking and actually reserve a space in a lot anywhere. And a lot of the lots are around venues. So I can routinely find a parking space near a venue for maybe $10, and everybody else is paying $20 to $40. And all I have to do is, I signed up with this, and so I get their emails every so often.
What's the name of the...
I knew you were going to ask me that. And the one thing that's sticking in my head is Spotify, and they're the music guys.
I tell you what.
I will look it up, and we'll make sure we put it in the when we post the video.
So we're recording this. We're doing this session live. We're recording it, and if you're watching this later, then we'll put it into the notes below. Yeah. So it is 3:00. We're going to officially start our show. If you are just joining us, my name is Melissa Tosetti, and I am the founder of The Savvy Life. And this is...
I'm Kevin Gibbons. I'm a vice president and cash flow planner for The Savvy Life.
So what The Savvy Life is, it is this concept, it's the name of our business, but it's this concept of creating a strong financial foundation while enjoying the journey, and doing that by being very purposeful with where you spend your time and where you spend your money. While we work with clients one-on-one to create spending plans, budgets, if you will, a huge part of what we do is actually in teaching clients how to live within that plan. Like, how do you have a savvy life? How do you enjoy yourself? So much of these sessions that we do are really around all these little bits. Going to a concert,
Yeah.
How do you not get surprised and frustrated by all the extra little expenses that go along with that? It's not about doing without, it's about figuring out how to do it and how to be purposeful in doing it.
Yeah. So much of it is just knowing how to and where to do the pre-planning.
Right.
And it doesn't take a lot of effort if you know where to go. If you have to create it from scratch, that's where you can get frustrated and overwhelmed. But if you understand where to go and you have the luxury of drawing upon over 250 clients' experiences and your own family's experiences, you can then know where to point people in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah. So today what we would like to talk to you about is about food. So I always tell people, I'm Portuguese, my husband's Italian. We love food.
I'm Irish.
Love to cook.
Yep.
Absolutely love to cook. But food is not, let me back up for a moment. Food is absolutely the number one area where clients want help. They are getting home late because of long commutes or long days at work, and they're getting more takeout than they want to. They are overbuying at the grocery store. They go into the grocery store without a plan, and so food goes to waste. So we have a lot of conversations about food. On the flip side, though, I feel extraordinarily strongly that food is culture, food is friends, food is family. It is delicious. It is a very important thing. It shouldn't be a, hey, I want to shave 20% off my grocery bill. And I want to, and then the same thing with dining out. It should be conversations around, okay, how do you become more purposeful, but still get as much enjoyment, if not even more enjoyment out of it? And the specific topic that we want to talk to you about today is around fresh food and produce. Okay. Anything specific you want to jump in on that first, or do you want me to talk about my experience?
Go ahead and talk about your recent experience. I think it's a good place to go.
Some of you may have heard us talk about before. I am an urban gardener, if you will. I have been gardening and running vegetable gardens since I was a little kid. And I have actually, I was kind of quite proud of myself. So this is a little bit aside, but just this year I've taken 4 classes around urban gardening, or just gardening in general. And yesterday I went to an event that I've been wanting to go to for 2 years, and it's called the Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Expo. They were expecting 20,000 people. It felt like all of them were kids. No, they do a lot with school programs, school gardening programs. But basically they had experts from all over the world in this one specific place. And it was all about, how do we take back our food? How do we take back our produce? And so that specifically was for those folks that are either gardening in their backyard, or they've got urban farms, or even bigger farms, right? So that's one aspect of produce. And it was, I came back like still motivated. I'm ready to tear out more of my backyard, my front yard, and do stuff. That's one aspect, right? Is to grow your own. And then you also have, obviously you have the produce section at your grocery store. You have access to farmers markets. Is that something that you do? Yeah. Do you guys ever go to them?
We do it not on a regular basis. We probably do it about once a month. Part of it's for convenience, and part of it is, again, with our work schedule, cooking is somewhat erratic. And so I don't want to buy fresh food on a Saturday and then not be able to sit down and have a meal together with my wife until Friday. You know, I kind of want to plan things and get stuff that's a little bit fresher. So we do it occasionally, but not regularly.
And I think that's one of the keys. And I'll talk about that more in a minute. And then another way of being able to access fresh produce is CSAs. And I've had the pleasure of having worked with a couple of clients that are actually farmers and that run CSAs. And so what a CSA is, if you're not familiar with it, is that you pay in advance, a couple $100 sometimes, depending on what the relationship is that you have with the farmer. And that farmer will then contact you when the produce is ready, and every week through that season, you'll get a box of whatever is growing. So it is, talk about farm to table.
That's really nice, because that really encourages / forces you to experiment and to learn how to prepare seasonal local food. And I think that's a really big part. You're not cooking green beans like your grandmother taught you for every meal. You're developing new recipes and new techniques, and you're cooking and eating seasonally.
Yeah, and it gives you just an opportunity, as we should, right? As human beings, we should be eating seasonally, but I'll jump off so I was still a little, I talked from yesterday's expo. There's what I'm going at is there's a lot of different ways that we have access to produce. Now, each one has its own benefits, its own pros and cons. One of the cons about grocery produce is that it is very often shipped from other countries. It was picked often a couple weeks ago, if not longer than that, and it's shipped. And the waste around, so I'll get a little political on this, the waste around what doesn't get sent to a grocery store and just gets wasted is unfortunate, although that doesn't necessarily affect you. It doesn't affect you as far as your price goes. Price at grocery stores tends to be much higher, okay? Then you have your farmers markets. Depending on where you live, farmers markets, you can find specific stalls. And the key to farmers markets is you walk every single stall, and then you go back to the ones that you want to purchase from. So Redwood City's farmers market, and we do very similar to what Kevin does, is I only go when I know I'm going to be using that produce within a certain time. So I probably go maybe every third week. Okay. And I'm very lucky because it's nearby.
It's very close to you.
So I know that there are a couple stalls there that I can get fruit specifically for half the price of what I would get at the grocery store.
And that's largely because we have I believe that's largely because we have a very large fruit growing area. Within less than half a day's drive, if you head out to, I would expect that most of the fruit comes from that you get here comes from the Brentwood areas.
Actually, I can tell you because I get very excited and I talk to all the farmers because they're from my hometown.
Oh, okay.
They're from the Central Valley, so all that is coming from about 2.5 hours away.
Okay.
And again, here's another opportunity. And granted, I'm an ag geek, but I get a chance to talk to the people that pick that produce, the day before. And it's fun too to go to farmers markets because if you start to frequent more often, you start to see the people that are buying from the vendors, there's a relationship that starts to develop. And it reminds me very much of what you see on a daily basis in the European markets, right? Especially in places like France. So you have that element and you can save. The problem with farmers markets is that it's also lovely. And it's, only $1 here and it's only $1 there. Or, it's actually more than that. It's like $3 here and $5 there. Pretty soon, it's very easy to spend anywhere between $30 and $50 on stuff that has a short shelf life. And so if you go in and you do not have a plan, farmers markets, it's very much like Costco. You can use it for good or you can use it for evil.
And I think one of the benefits of farmers markets is that they tend to pick their food much closer to the ripeness stage. That's the benefit of it. But that also means that because it ripened on the vine, on the tree, whatever, it will spoil quicker. It also hasn't been treated. A lot of the food that you buy in grocery stores, not only was it picked before it was ripe, but they process it with different types of gases to retard development and spoilage.
Right.
The stuff at the farmers markets doesn't have that. So again, it will spoil much more quicker if you don't use it.
Yeah, so you have to, it's better to purchase less and make sure nothing goes to waste. Because again, the most expensive food is not Whole Foods. It's the food that gets thrown away. Yeah. And then the similar idea with CSAs, right? So you get this big box. If you despise kale, or if there are certain vegetables that you absolutely despise, you might want to pick which CSA you're going to be going to. You don't want to go to a farm that kale is their specialty. Yeah. So again, it's all about eyes wide open. Circling back to this whole conversation, that's a lot about doing it well. I think that for folks that are really into cooking and really enjoy food, there is something about being that much closer to your food than just picking something up at the grocery store. At the grocery store, you can get strawberries year round.
Yeah, but they taste like it.
Exactly. Tomatoes, it's one of the things that I grow because a tomato from a grocery store, it doesn't taste like anything, and they're expensive.
Yeah. My wife planted tomatoes earlier this year, and she was getting very frustrated because she didn't do them on vines. She kind of got lazy, so we have this tomato sprawl in the backyard. Fortunately, we don't have a lot of critters that eat.
Yeah.
Thing, so it hasn't survived. But she would go out there and check and wouldn't see anything, saw a few buds, was getting really, really frustrated. So what am I doing wrong? I tried to do all the right stuff. And then within the last 2.5 weeks, suddenly, boom, and we're inundated with tomatoes. And of course, they all ripen at the same time.
Yep.
So last today's Thursday. Did she do it last week? No, I think she did it Tuesday. She did it Tuesday when I was out of the office. She took all the tomatoes and she decided, I'm going to make homemade from scratch spaghetti sauce.
Ooh.
Oh, it was good.
Yeah.
It was really good. Yeah.
And
So,
that's the way that, I mean,
yeah,
that's the way that we've been living for hundreds of years, especially with the canning and, you know, other ways of preserving that food for centuries.
So going back to your point, the flavor of freshly grown, fully ripened fruits and vegetables is just astounding. In fact, if you have historically said, oh, I don't like X because I don't like the way it tastes bland, it's tough, or it's bitter, try some freshly grown, freshly ripened stuff before you rule it out. All right.
Agreed.
Whatever it is, because it does taste completely different.
Yeah, agreed. Fun thing about going to this expo yesterday was that the people that put it on, they Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company. They are actually, I've been buying from them for this entire season. Everything that I've grown from them, and I was astonished at how well everything took from seed. But what they did was they had this entire pavilion, and it was filled with the outcome of all those seeds. So you got to see tables of all these different tomatoes, and they had all this tasting lined up. Nice. And so, you know, if you grew up in an area that was not there, that doesn't have an agricultural, what's the word I'm looking for? If you're not near agriculture, you just think that all tomatoes look the same, and you think that all potatoes look the same. And going and having that experience, admittedly, it was a bit overwhelming. I was like, I'm just going to stick to the tomatoes that I have, but it is important. I feel so strongly that it's so important that they are capturing. They're just making sure that those varieties don't die.
Yeah.
Without saving those seeds. And there were so many pictures that I took of these varieties of produce that were just on the brink of not existing anymore because the seed went.
And that's an interesting thing. A lot of people from other countries come to America and go to an American supermarket, and they're shell shocked. They will literally walk into a supermarket and stop and stare, and they can't move because there are just too many choices. When the fact of the matter is, supermarkets sell what sells. So they only sell a small fraction of what's out there because that's what people want to buy. It's kind of like the example that always comes to my mind is if you go to the wine section of a supermarket, when Sideways came out, soon after Sideways came out,
the movie about
wine in the Santa Ynez Valley, and one of the things about it is the main character thought that Merlots were low-grade, crappy wines. Within probably a month, all the Merlots had gotten taken out of the supermarket wine stocks and replaced with Pinots and Cabernets. And again, supermarkets sell what sell. Yeah. So there's a ton of other varieties out there that you'll never see because it didn't meet the criteria for the sale. So the fact that you're seeing, even the fact that foreign visitors get shocked by our variety, that's only a small fraction of what is possible to grow and what the growers are capable of doing and are doing.
Circling back on this, I have talked quite a bit about how so much of this idea of living a savvy life it's about quality over quantity. It's about being purposeful. And when it comes to food, I'm not saying that everybody needs to go out and start overloading on produce and buying it only from farmers markets or anything like that. But it's just that idea of if food is important to you or produce is important to you, it's such a part of that experience of cooking. It's such a part of it's not just about going and buying groceries and enjoying that experience. There's just something about that, and it was a very fun thing that I did, and thank you for letting me have the day off. So I think that based on that particular conversation, it would be good sometime in the next couple of weeks to talk more about this idea of this slow food movement, because that's another
whole other area.
A whole other area, and I think very important. And again, we worked with a lot of clients that love cooking, and then a lot of clients that don't know how to cook, but want to get better. They're just tired of dining out. They're tired of takeout, and so they want to create some structure around trying to do better around food. So plus, I love food's delicious.
Yeah, and it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, very much so.